بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي، ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. Okay, so we had stopped here, but let's do this part again, because there are some concepts which might need a bit of unpacking. So existence is the fact that there is a thing, while essence is the nature of the thing, and is the. So probably this relates to essence, necessary ground for the contingent being of the thing. So I'm not sure whether he is claiming it himself or referring to these philosophers he mentioned here. Against this background, later philosophers have continued to discuss the relationship between essence and existence. But let's unpack this. So he's saying existence is a fact that there is a thing. On the other hand, essence is the nature of a thing. So he attributed this distinction to the philosophers who were guided by the idea of a creator God. And then from there he says that and that essence, now according to him or according to the same philosophers, essence is the ground for the existence of, or rather he said necessary ground for the existence of contingent being of the thing. Contingent being of a thing. So I'm not sure whether he's claiming this himself or attributing it to those philosophers who came after Aquinas. Firstly, he's mentioning two types of beings, contingent and necessary. When in the easy terms, contingent being is something which could have been otherwise. Necessary being is which could not have been otherwise. So for example, the tree standing in front of me, it exists obviously, but it is a contingent existence. This tree's existence is apparently contingent existence because we can imagine that it might not have been existed. It might have not been there. There's no necessity that it must have been there. Because for the simple reason that there were times when it wasn't there. There were times and traditionally in philosophy, as far as concrete beings are concerned, the only being about which it is claimed that it could not have been otherwise, it's God. So God is the necessary being, its existence is necessary. Because how can there be a God, meaning all powerful, and the ground of everything else which is possible, that which himself or herself didn't exist or hadn't existed? So these are conceptual distinctions, obviously, and the writer is claiming that essence, that is the nature of a thing, is a ground or reason for the being of all contingent things. So existence is not the ground. The existence of a chair is not the ground of its nature or essence, according to these philosophers. On the contrary, because tree is a contingent being, its nature is the ground for existence. And which is strange, because if a thing doesn't exist, how can its nature exist? So you would think that, as Kant light of thought, that existence is the ground for the nature of anything. But here, these philosophers, according to this entry, thought that for contingent being, that's what I'm reading here, but I'm not very sure whether this is a correct attribution. For contingent being, the nature or essence of those is the ground for their. Unless by ground it means something else. So here, it feels like they're taking existence as one of the predicate among other predicates. The difference is that with the contingent being, essence, although it's a ground, it doesn't imply existence. So it's with contingent being, it's something like this is the nature or essence of a tree, and it can exist, and it so that's one possible, but it might not exist. So, for example, if you hadn't grown a tree or sown seeds, for example, in the ground, or you had sown seeds but you hadn't watered them for whatever reason, so nature or essence of contingent being might not actualize in existence. So, if this is true, in what sense essence is the ground for maybe something like this? If so, tree has this nature. For example, it is uh, in Arabic they say it's jismnami, for example. It's a body which grows. Um, um, for example, that's its essence. Um, and this essence doesn't imply existence. Okay, so there's no necessity that this nature actually actualize in existence. But if it does actualize, if it does actualize, then this essence grounds its existence in the probably in the sense that without some without this core nature it could not exist, or it would not exist, even though the existence of this nature is not necessary. But if it does actualize as tree, it cannot exist as a tree without this nature. That seems almost like a tautology, but seems like that's what he's saying. Let's read it again and we'll stop because we have gone uh, for long enough. Would have to do another session to finish this off. So let's read it again. So he's saying existence is the fact that there is a thing. Yeah. While essence is the nature of that thing. So if so far is good. And necessary ground. Now ground can mean reason, can simply mean basis for the continued being of that thing. Let's look at this possibility again, if this makes any difference. So it's saying the existence is the fact that thing is existence, the fact that there is a thing. On the other hand, essence, nature of that thing. So far good. Now, the third claim is that while and is the necessary ground for the contingent being of that thing. Seems like in essence is the contingent, so it's not necessary. Contingent being, ground for the contingent being. So ground, essence is the ground for the existence. Now, if ground by ground it means reason, or then it doesn't make sense that essence is the reason for existence. On the other hand, it means it is the basis or structure on which existence is added for it to realize in reality, then that can be more plausible reading, even though still not very, it's still not very convincing. Because in that case, you're saying that nature of a thing provides structure for its existence. That is, once existence is added to the structure, then the things is realized as a concrete thing. And that sort of gels well with the idea that existence is a predicate. But Kant and other people, and even before that, like for example, I think in Islamic philosophy, Imam Abul Hasan Ashari, for example, they said that actually existence is the ground for the possibility of any nature. But if a thing doesn't exist, then none of its nature exists. Or is possible in that sense. But that's a more convincing possibility, even though the other reading that where existence is a predicate, that was also very common before the modern period. Anyway, we will stop here. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa اللهم انصر إخواننا المجاهدين في غزة وفي فلسطين وفي اليمن وفي لبنان وفي إيران وفي العراق وفي بلاد الشام كلها وفي مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم ألف بين قلوبهم وأصلح ذات بينهم. اللهم سدد رميهم. اللهم سدد خطاهم. اللهم سدد رايهم وانصرهم نصرا عزيزا معزرا. صلى وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا رب.